The filter screamed. Not with the high-pitched electronic cry of a system alert, but a low guttural groan, like a dying animal. Gavin kicked the metal housing, and the sound stopped. He wiped sweat from his forehead with the back of a greasy hand. "That's the third time this cycle, Connor," Gavin said, his voice flat. "It's not just failing, it's quitting." Connor leaned against the cool metal wall of the main hab, his eyes closed. Every problem felt like another stone added to a pack he already couldn't carry. "We have 2 backup filters we used last month. The other is compromised. The seals are cracked." Gavin held up a piece of brittle plastic. "Just like everything else in this tomb." From across the room at the command console, Sarah didn't look up. Her focus was absolute, her face illuminated by the cascade of data on the main screen. "It's not a tomb. It's a sanctuary. And I'm close. I can feel it." Yes. The data stream was their only connection to the outside, to a world beyond the 2-meter-thick concrete walls of the Stellarium bunker. For 5 years, it had been receiving a complex, repeating signal from a planet they only knew as T-Garden B. A fragile thread of hope stretched across 12 light-years of empty space. "Close to what, Sarah?" Gavin scoffed. "Another ghost? Another meaningless pattern? We need water, not radio waves." "It's more than a pattern now," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. "The cycle has shifted. A new sequence is embedded. It's like a key. I just need to find the lock." Connor pushed himself off the wall and walked toward the console, placing a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "Show me." She pointed to a spiraling helix of code. "For 5 years, the signal has been a simple loop. But now, this part is different. It's dense. It has structure. This is language, Connor." Gavin walked over, his heavy boots echoing in the quiet room. "Yes." He looked at the screen, then at the failing water filter, and finally at Connor. "We can't drink language. The primary filter is choked with biomass. We need to go out." "To the surface depot. Get the spare parts we were supposed to install 3 years ago." Going out was a death sentence. The surface was no longer theirs. It belonged to the flickers. They weren't the slow, stupid dead from old horror movies. They were fast, unnervingly silent, and drawn to any warmth, any light brighter than the cold, constant glare of the white dwarf that had replaced the sun. "No," Sarah said immediately. "Not now. We stay. We solve this. The signal is the answer. It has to be." "The signal won't save us if we die of thirst first," Gavin yelled, his voice cracking. "Or do you think the aliens from T-Garden D will ship us some water?" "That's enough, both of you," Connor commanded, his voice low but firm. "Yes." He felt the familiar pressure in his chest, the weight of a decision that had no good outcome. He looked at Sarah's desperate hope, then at Gavin's desperate pragmatism. They were both right. "Gavin is right," Connor said, the words tasting like ash. "We need the parts. We have no choice. You and I will go." "At twilight," Sarah stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "You can't. If the signal changes again, I need you here to help me process it." "Gavin can't manage the winch for the depot door alone," Connor lied. "You are more important here. You are the only one who understands that screen. Keep working. Find the lock, Sarah." Hours later, they stood at the airlock. Gavin checked the thermal charges on his rifle, his movements precise and economical. Connor sealed his suit, the hiss of the oxygen a lonely sound. Above them, the iris door to the surface began to open, revealing a sky the color of milk, dominated by the pale, dead light of the white dwarf. Yes, the cold hit them first. It was a deep, biting cold that the suit's heating coils struggled to fight. The world was silent. No wind, no birds, just a frozen landscape of gray dust and the skeletal remains of trees. The flickers were out there, hiding from the faint radiation of the star, waiting for the deeper cold of night. "Depot is 200 meters north," Connor's voice crackled in Gavin's ear. "Keep your thermal signature low. Move slow." They moved through the unnatural twilight. The depot was a low concrete structure, half buried in dust. As they approached, Gavin raised his hand, signaling a halt. He pointed. A shape, thin and long, was huddled against the depot wall. It was motionless. "Just one," Gavin whispered, sleeping. "Let's keep it that way," Connor replied. "I'll get the door. Cover me." Connor worked on the frozen lock, his gloves making the task clumsy. Every scrape of metal on metal felt like a shout in the silence. The flicker didn't move. Yes, finally the lock clicked open, and the heavy door groaned inward. Inside, it was pitch black and smelled of ozone and decay. They found the crate of filter components quickly. As they lifted it, a metallic clang echoed from outside. They froze. Then another, sharper this time. It was coming from the direction of the bunker. "What was that?" Gavin breathed. "I don't know. Let's move. Now!" Connor said. They hauled the heavy crate out of the depot. The flicker that had been huddled by the wall was gone. In its place were fresh tracks in the dust. Many of them. They ran. The crate was heavy, forcing them into a clumsy, stumbling jog. The bunker entrance seemed miles away. A shape darted across their path, then another. The flickers were awake, drawn by the heat of their exertion and the noise from the depot. "They're hunting us!" Gavin shouted, fumbling to raise his rifle while still holding the crate. A flicker launched itself from the shadow of a dead tree. Yes, it was a nightmare of sharp angles and disjointed limbs. Gavin fired, the thermal charge hit the creature, and it burst into a cloud of steaming frozen particles. But there were more. They were being herded. "The entrance! Almost a!" Connor yelled, putting all his strength into a final push. They reached the outer door, and Connor slammed his palm on the access panel. The iris began to open, slowly, so slowly. A flicker grabbed Gavin's leg, its touch so cold it burned. He cried out and kicked it away. Another lunged for Connor. He swung the heavy crate, smashing the creature against the bunker wall. The door was open enough. They scrambled through, the crate tumbling after them, and Connor slammed the emergency close button. The iris closed, cutting off the silent screams of the creatures outside. They collapsed in the airlock, chests heaving as the decontamination cycle washed over them. Yes? When the inner door opened, Sarah was there. Her face pale, her eyes wide with something other than fear. "I found it," she whispered, her voice hollow. "I found the lock." I opened the message. They followed her back to the command console, Gavin limping heavily. The screen was no longer filled with spiraling code. It showed a simple, elegant animation, a double helix of DNA. Beside it, a star flared, changing from a yellow sun to a white dwarf. The helix shattered. "It's not a rescue message," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "It's not a greeting, it's a warning, a tombstone." She pointed at the data scrolling below the animation. "The white dwarf. Its radiation doesn't kill, it activates. There's a microbe, dormant in our soil, in our water, in us. It was in them too. The radiation is a catalyst. It rewrites our cells. It's what creates the flickers." The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the hum of the recycler and Gavin's ragged breathing. "Yes. All this time," Gavin said, sinking into a chair. "We've been waiting for a savior. And they were just telling us how they died." Connor looked at the screen, his face a mask of exhaustion. "I knew," he said quietly. Sarah and Gavin turned to him. "What?" Sarah asked. "I didn't know the details, but the founders of the Stellarium project suspected. Project Teagarden wasn't about first contact. It was a desperate gamble. They knew the sun was dying. They suspected a biological threat was tied to it. The signal from Teagarden was our only chance to see if another intelligent species had faced the same apocalypse, and if they had found a way to survive. I didn't tell you the whole truth because I didn't want to take away your hope." "Hope?" Gavin laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "You left us clinging to a ghost story while the real threat was in our own water, in our own blood." As if on cue, a red light began to flash on the life support panel. "Yes, biohazard detected water reclamation system." The scream from the filter hadn't been a mechanical failure. The biomass Gavin had mentioned, it wasn't a grime. The flickers weren't just outside anymore. The infection was inside the bunker. It was inside them. Despair settled over the room, thick and suffocating. This was the end. Not a violent fight at the door, but a quiet surrender to their own biology. But Sarah was still staring at the screen, her eyes tracing the alien data. She scrolled to the very end of the transmission, a section that had been corrupted and had taken her hours to reconstruct. "Wait," she whispered. The animation replayed. The star flared, the DNA shattered. But then, something new appeared. A smaller molecule, an enzyme, moved in and began to repair the broken strands. She looked up, her eyes bright with a new, fierce light. It wasn't the blind hope of before. It was something harder, something forged in terror and discovery. Yes. "It wasn't just a warning," she declared, her voice ringing with certainty. "They didn't just send us their epitaph." She pointed to the molecule on the screen, a complex but understandable structure. "They sent us the cure." Yes,